Pure cold of the western Himalayas, where even breathing feels defiance, a war was fought that would decide the fate of Ladakh and perhaps the map of India itself. This is the story of the Battle of Zoji La, fought in October and November of 1948. A battle where Indian soldiers dragged tanks into the sky and turned the impossible into history. After the partition of 1947, the newly developed independent nations of India and Pakistan were born out of chaos and blood. But in the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, the storm was just beginning. When tribesmen from Pakistan invaded Kashmir in October 1947, their target was clear: capture Srinagar, cut off Ladakh, and force the Maharaja's land into submission. Maharaja Hari Singh signed the instrument of accession, and Indian troops moved in. The airlift to Srinagar saved the valley, but while the focus remained on Srinagar, another crisis brewed quietly in the east, in the high passes of Ladakh. Jozila, at over 11,500 feet, the only gateway from Kashmir Valley to Ladakh. If Jozila fell, Leh would be isolated, and if Leh fell, all of Ladakh would, and its access to Tibet would be gone. By the summer of 1948, Pakistani irregulars and Gilgit Scouts had advanced rapidly. They captured Drass and Kargil, blocked the road to Leh. Indian convoys attempting to reach Ladakh were ambushed and annihilated. The mountain winds carried the echo of defeat. The Indian army made several attempts to recapture Jozila, but the terrain was brutal. Steep cliffs, narrow roads, and freezing winds. Every inch was controlled by enemy machine guns pierced high above. Infantry assaults failed one after another. At this altitude, even breathing required effort. Fighting was near impossible. The defenders believed no armored vehicles could ever reach such heights. They were wrong. Enter Major General Kodandera Subaya Thimayya, a man of vision and audacity. Appointed commander of the 19th Infantry Division, he studied the maps and terrain for days. The conclusion was chilling. Without Jozila, Ladakh would be lost before winter. Then came his impossible ideas. Use tank. At 11,500 feet, on the mountain tracks, barely wide enough for a jeep, where even mules slipped and froze, the idea was met with disbelief, even laughter. But Thimayya wasn't a man who accepted limits. He ordered the 7th Light Cavalry under Colonel Rajinder Singh Sparrow to bring their M5 Stuart light tanks from Srinagar to the front. How? By dismantling them piece by piece. Engines, guns, turrets, all separated, loaded on trucks, then dragged by hand, oxen, and bulldozers up narrow icy mountain roads to Baltal. It was more than a logistical challenge, it was an engineering warfare against nature itself. At Baltal, 10,000 feet, the tanks were reassembled under snowfall, another threat of air raids under constant watch of the enemy. As the dawn of November 1st, 1948 approached, pardon, Thimayya gave the order. Operation Bison would begin. At first light, Indian guns opened fire. Artillery from Mayatan and Baltal roared across the valley. Enemy bankers at the crest of Jozila were hammered. Then from the mist they came, the tank of 7th Light Cavalry, M5 Stuarts, rolling forward in a place where no tank was meant to exist. Each weighed nearly 15 tons. Each crawled on the edge of cliffs, inches from death. The enemy thought they were trucks until the first 37 shell tore through a bunker. Shockwaves rippled through the Pakistani lines. Infantry from 1/5, Gorkha rifles, and Patiala state forces surged behind the armor. The combined assault ripped through enemy positions that had held for months. By noon, Indian troops had breached Jozila. The defenders were stunned by the presence of tanks in the clouds, broke and fled towards Drass and Kargil. By November 3rd, the tricolor flew once again over Jozila. The Srinagar Leh route was open. Reinforcements poured into Ladakh before the pass was closed for winter. This was not just a tactical victory. It was a strategic miracle. India had not only recaptured Jozila, it had secured Ladakh permanently. Without this operation, Ladakh would have been lost. The modern map of India might have looked very different. This victory cemented Thimayya's reputation as one of India's most brilliant generals. He would later serve as army chief and even as a UN commander in Korea. But his legends were born here, among the icy winds of Jozila. The Battle of Jozila remains a symbol of ingenuity, endurance, and absolute defiance. It proved that Indian soldiers were not just brave, they were innovative. They could bend terrain, weather, and machine to their will. It marked the first use of tanks in mountain warfare anywhere in the world. It also laid the foundation for India's later successes in high altitude combat from Siachen to Kargil. Every soldier who passes through that pass today, whether by road or by air, crosses a battlefield where courage itself was redefined. At 11,500 feet, where even gods hesitate, the Indian army wrote its scripture of steel and snow. The Battle of Jozila, a story not just of victory alone, but of belief. Belief that mountains can be conquered and that no height is beyond the will of man who refuses to surrender.